Well, hello, everybody. Grace and peace to you in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. My name is Jim McCormick. I am the Senior Vice President and Vice President for Student Life and Enrollment here at Colorado Christian University. And I'm coming to you from God's country, Denver, Colorado, where it is a beautiful, hot day. Dry hot, though, here in Denver. And of course, if you've heard me before, Colorado is where I think the Lord did most of his best work. So welcome to God's country here at CCU. Well, we are excited to launch a series here of 4 different webinars to bring you up to speed on what is happening here at CCU, especially this fall with our current health crisis. And I'm glad that you have joined us tonight. Now, if you're not joining us by Zoom, you're not going to be able to ask any questions tonight. So if you want to ask questions, you'll need to jump on the Zoom call, and you can do that at our CCU Cares website, which is ccu.edu/CCU-cares, and that will tell you how to get on the Zoom call. Or you can simply email me at Jim McCormick, one word, at ccu.edu, and I can take your email too if you'd rather not go on to the Zoom. Well, before we get started tonight, and I have in mind to be wrapped up well before 7 tonight, let's ask the Lord to be with us in this time. Well, Lord, we just come to you with our hearts full of what's happening in our world and our nation, with so many different things that impact what we do here at CCU. But this is your ministry. This is your university. We know you have a plan for us. We know you have a pathway for us. Lord, I ask that you would continue to challenge us through your Holy Spirit to follow you relentlessly during this time, to take your guidance, to seek wisdom, to seek judgment. Lord, I ask that you would be with each of our families as they prepare to come during this tremulous time to CCU and to, again, give us their precious gifts here this fall. Lord, I would ask that you would find us faithful and being good stewards of those resources, those gifts that you have given these parents and these families. So, Lord, we just give you all the glory, honor, and power tonight as we come to you and communicate some of the things that we ask you to be involved with very deeply this fall here at CCU. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, as I started to think about tonight and this preparation that we have been doing really since early March, as many of you returners know that are on the call, early March, we got the word on COVID and had a 3-week period there of trying to put lots of different things together. And since then, we have been almost dealing every day with this health crisis and how it will impact us at CCU this fall. But Luke 12:35 came to mind that says, "Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning." We are dressed and ready to serve our students here at CCU. And verse 34 of that chapter says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And our treasure is our students, our community, the experience we want to provide here at CCU for them. And our lamp is burning brightly for them to return to campus, to return to the community that they have invested in, to come and establish what the Lord has for them. So we are dressed and ready for service. We feel like we have been planning well. We've been asking the Lord to be with us. We've been taking his lead and his guidance. We've been seeking wise counsel. We are dressed and ready to serve our students. We are really moving ahead during this time to provide the best Christian residential university experience in the nation. And I don't say that lightly. I've been at CCU for 25 years, and I've almost been on 50 other Christian universities. No one does community better than CCU, and few provide the educational experience the way CCU does. So we have not set out to compromise and just get by during this time where so many things are uncertain. We are not shrinking back, wondering how to continue our Christ-centered atmosphere here at CCU. We are being bold and moving forward and looking to provide everything that we normally do with great excellence while being watchful and smart about how we do things in this current health crisis. So We are not canceling and hoping for the best. We are ramping up and relying on the Lord to make our path straight. Our enrollment has not been impacted by COVID. In fact, right now, we are set to have our 11th straight record year of enrollment on the traditional side of the campus. And right now, we have broken every record for applications and accepts and deposits. By the end of when school starts, we'll have broken every record that we've had in those areas. So the Lord has blessed us with students who want to be here, that feel like CCU has something special for them to offer. And we want to come alongside them and provide everything that we normally do while being smart about the challenges that this current health crisis has given us. Since really late February, we have had a team together to filter through all of our programs and come up with protocols that we believe help keep students safe while being able to do what we want to do in terms of programs and our academic mission. And that is what I want to share with you tonight, and then take some questions after that. So at some point, it might be important for you to ask a question. So you might think of joining us on the Zoom call, or keep my email, jimmccormick@ccu.edu, handy. In March, I really told our students one bottom line premise that CCU has for the members of its community. We love our students, and your safety, their safety, is of utmost concern for us. When one of our students goes to the hospital, we go. When they accomplish great things, we are there. We mourn with those who mourn, and we celebrate with those who celebrate at CCU. So one thing I want to say right off the bat, we are trying to think of everything we can to keep our students healthy and safe as they continue their educational journey, or for some of you, begin that journey here at CCU that the Lord has put before you at CCU. We are dressed and ready for service. So obviously, we are asking our students to be dressed and ready for service as well when they come to CCU here in just about 7 weeks or so. We want them and need them to help us navigate these things, to help follow our guidelines, to reach out to their community and assist others, and frankly, to get on with what the Lord wants them to get on with. So tonight, I wanted to highlight a few things of what we are thinking about in terms of protocol here at the university in several different areas. That might elicit some questions as we go from here. But obviously at CCU, we will adhere to all county, health, and state and federal guidelines necessary to carry out our ongoing mission of impacting students for Christ as they hone the academic discipline that God wants to use to impact his kingdom. So we are very much in tune with the Department of Education, Department of Higher Education, the governor's office here in the state, keeping our eye on the CDC and what they're saying. And we planned 3 really basic scenarios for this fall. But we are now concentrating on the one scenario that is, we are going to be fully open with the restrictions that the state and local authorities are going to put on us. But we plan to be back in seat in the classroom, have our residence halls completely operating normally, and adhere to some of the restrictions on numbers here and there, and that kind of thing. And here's some of the ways that we're going to do this. The first thing we felt like is that we needed to get a baseline for all of our students as they re-enter our community. And so for residence hall students, when you check in to our community, you'll have already done a few things. One, a couple of weeks before the halls open, we're going to send you a survey and ask you to tell us about your comings and goings, if you've had symptoms, if you've been in high-risk situations. And we are really wanting our residence hall students, roommates, to start to talk about that kind of thing. Where have you been this summer? Has anyone that you know had it? Have you had any scares? Have you had any symptoms? That kind of thing. And so we really want that survey to kind of prompt that conversation among our residence hall students. We are really hoping to capitalize on what's been a hallmark here at CCU, and that is that our residence hall students are really family units. I mean, they bond together as little family units. We're counting on that this fall, because we want that family unit to really take care of each other, watch out for each other, have a commitment to each other, and we want those family units to start to communicate there a couple of weeks before school opens. And then when you come, before you go into your room, we're going to do a temperature check and have you do a quick survey right there to make sure we are good. And then you'll be allowed to go ahead and move into your room. One of the things that we're going to ask each room to do is to fill out a roommate contract together once everybody's there that talks about, and we'll guide that and have that document for you, that talks about behaviors, risky behavior, that has a commitment there of, I will tell my roommates when I have symptoms. I will tell my roommates if I've been exposed, that kind of thing. Talks about cleanliness of the apartment, that kind of thing. We want that roommate contract, for lack of a better word, agreement, to be one that starts that family unit really forming together with the bonding of some commitments. That I will not only be a good roommate here, but I will make sure that I tell and communicate with my fellow students with things that might be a concern for their safety or health going forward. So as soon as that baseline check is done, you'll be able to get into your room. Again, our rooms will be as normal with normal occupancy. And then we're going to ask each room to fill out that agreement to kind of set a baseline with the room about how things are going to go for the rest of the semester. If you're a commuter student, we're going to ask that, again, you'll get that survey a couple of weeks before so that we can kind of see what you've been up to this summer. And the day before school opens or the morning of classes, we'll ask you to go through a baseline check as well. We're hoping to have all 1,400 plus students checked with a baseline check right as school starts, with temperature and a survey about their happenings and what risk they might be there as well. And you will not be allowed to go into classes on Monday the 24th unless you have gone through that baseline check. We're also asking all of our students to think about 1 to 2 weeks before school starts. If you're coming on the 19th for orientation and entering the residence halls, or you're coming the 23rd or the 22nd, a returning student, or even the 24th if you're a commuter student. We would ask you just to think about 2 weeks before that to really limit your risky behaviors in terms of what the CDC says are risky behaviors, big crowds, with people with symptoms, that kind of thing. We'd love for you to really have in mind, I want to prepare myself to come to this campus, and I'm going to limit those behaviors that the CDC says we should be at watch for COVID. So we ask that you be ready to serve us in that area. We will have a mask protocol on campus, and it will basically be as you walk outside around campus, you will not be required to have a mask, but in every building you will be. And right now, when you get to your final destination, you'll be able to take that mask off maybe. So for instance, coming and going to class in the building, we'd ask that you have your mask on. Once you sit down in the classroom, you can take your mask off for class, unless that professor asks you to keep it on because of a risk that they're feeling in their life. As you come into the dining hall, just like some of the restaurants that you're starting to frequent now, you'll keep your mask off until you get your food and sit down, and then you can unmask there as well. So in your rooms, obviously in the residence halls, you're able to do what you want to do, but we ask as you leave your room and go out through the main lobby until you get outside that you wear a mask there. And most of our activities, anytime that we're together in how many ever large groups we're able to be, there will probably be a mask protocol there as well that we'll ask you to adhere to as well. Another thing is some of our students coming in for orientation will obviously be coming from hotspots. We are not going to make you quarantine once you get here at CCU. I do ask you, especially if you're coming from a hotspot around the nation, that you would be one to really think about limiting your activities for 2 weeks before you come to CCU. But then as you get to CCU, we're going to ask a daily check for 2 weeks. That's going to take not hardly any of your time down at the front desk in the residence hall or here in the student center at the front desk if you're a commuter student to make sure that nothing comes up over that first 2-week period here as well. And of course, all of these guidelines will be given to you in writing, students. You'll have them. You'll have a list of those as you go forward. So some of the things that we are really thinking about now is obviously what happens if someone in our community gets COVID, gets the virus. What are we going to do? And we have several different protocols in place for that so far. One is that if you are experiencing symptoms, we are asking you not to go to our health clinic. Our health clinic will handle you via Zoom. And if you cannot call our health clinic or get that because it's after hours, we're going to ask you to either call your medical authority in your life, your medical provider, or an Ask a Nurse kind of hotline or whatever. Many of you have insurance through your parents. We're asking you to really know what that Ask a Nurse, that 24-hour hotline that you can call in your insurance and get some advice from a medical provider will be. We are going to ask you, obviously, as you get further instructions, either from our health clinic or from an Ask a Nurse or your medical provider, to either go ahead through testing or be quarantined. You will have 2 options there. You can be tested, and of course, if you test positive, we're going to quarantine you then. Or if you don't want to be tested, we're going to ask you to be quarantined at that point as well. And if you're a residence hall student, we will have quarantine rooms for you. We are asking all students to think about initially returning home if at all possible. Obviously, you don't want to fly home, but if mom and dad can come get you or a family member can come get you and take you home and care for you during this time, we'd rather have that happen. If not, then we have quarantine rooms on campus as well as slightly off campus that we're going to use during this period. What if your roommate tests positive? We're going to go through the same process. You'll need to be tested or quarantined at that time as well. If you're a commuter student and go through this process, we'll ask you to stay off campus and not come to campus in any way until you're cleared by a medical provider that way as well. Either way, though, we are requiring our students who come to notify us when they get symptoms, and we have a protocol for that. And when they get tested for that test result so that we can do contact tracing, so that we can provide quarantine and services to our students at that point. We are asking our students to do one or the other. Our preference would be that you get tested because that's what the CDC guideline is, that if you're experiencing symptoms, they want you to get tested. And we'll have several different opportunities for testing around us, several partners that you can go to right around CCU, a couple within walking distance if you don't have transportation, so that you can get tested there. But if for some reason you don't want to get tested, then we're going to have to quarantine you right off the bat. So I want to go through just a couple of different areas. The first one is residence life. I've talked a little bit about that on moving in, but we want those rooms again to become family units. Our RAs will have the opportunity and the ability to do temperature checks there and will periodically. Our front desk will have that as well. We've talked about the roommate contract there as well. We really want those living environments, to take care of themselves, to really act like family in this time, to really communicate well as well there. So we're hoping that that communication will keep everybody moving in the right direction, will be an early warning sign when things come up, and we'll be able to move right in that residence hall setting and do what we need to do if someone presents the virus. We will have a no visitation policy off campus. Visitation will not be able to occur in our residence halls. We'll have no outside guests at any time, especially for the fall semester going forward. And obviously, we'll keep with our activities appropriate distancing for groups meeting in spaces, for RA meetings, for floor activities, that kind of thing. We'll step up our cleaning in the common areas as well, and then really ask our family units in our residence hall to designate a time a week that they will do some extensive cleaning as well within their apartment that way. If you're an athlete, we are dressed and ready for service for you coming back to campus. We are putting lots of protocols together for things like practices and weight room and training and that kind of thing. July 17th is a key time for the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, where we're meeting to talk about protocols for the fall, what's happening in the fall for sports in general. And so you'll really want to come to that following Wednesday after the 17th. That is going to be on athletics and what's happening with athletics. But you'll be back as normal right now in the fall, and following the protocols that we have put in place for our athletes, including a symptom screen every time you get together for practice or games by our coaches. If you're a new student, the weekend of welcome is coming very quickly, beginning the 19th of August. You will get some information about how to check in there. We will be checking people in a little more sporadically than usual. You'll get an opportunity to sign up for a time to check in to your residence hall, for instance. So we'll space students out there. We're going to keep outside a lot during WOW as we can. And we're currently kind of just thinking about all of the different things of weekend of welcome that we do normally and trying to fit them into either a Zoom format as parent workshops or here on campus, depending on what the level of attendance can be at that time. We are really praying, and I'd ask you to put on your prayer list that the number of people together can be extended a little bit before August hits. Right now, it's a little restrictive in Colorado, and we'd love to see that relaxed a little bit there. We will also, as people come, be doing a symptom check as they come in for WOW as well. But WOW is a big prayer item for us. We typically have almost 1,800 people here for weekend of welcome. Obviously, that's not going to work in the format that we usually do it in terms of what the state is telling us. So we're really praying through that and with a goal of kind of keeping everything together the way we normally do it. But we're excited about fall semester. We've got a lot of great things. This fall semester, we have a focus on the church with a series on the church. Those returners know that we sometimes have a year of. We're not having a year of the church this year, but we have a series focusing on the church. We have a series ramping up right now on continuing our conversations on race and ethnicity. Looking forward to that this fall. And all of our regular programs that we typically do, we have a commitment of continuing to try to do. And right now, some of the things that we typically do that have big crowds attached to them, we're kind of waiting to see if some of that crowd attendance won't loosen up by about the first or week of August. And then we'll make decisions on how to continue to have those programs, but under the guidelines that we are given. Right now, we are not anticipating canceling hardly any programs. We may be moving them around a little bit. We may be putting them in a different format, but all of our programs, including the new student retreat that happens 2 weeks into the first part of the semester, we will have. Whether we'll have it in September or not is a question, but we will not cancel that for the year. We will find hopefully another place during the year that will happen. In our food service area, we have a lot of flexibility there. We feel like that what's going on right now in the restaurants in Colorado, we can accommodate our food service process fine with that. We have plenty of room to spread out there. We will have to go. We will have opportunities. We will have in-seat opportunities. You can come in with whomever you want to and sit with whomever you want to there. We will have them sectioned out maybe a little bit and of course spread out a little bit there. But we plan to have our retail operations open and our in-seat dining operations open as well. And probably have disposable like we did, plates and cups and that kind of thing like we did in March, just to be smart there. So we feel like our dining area is going to be very normal. A couple words on health services, a couple more. We will continue to have health services open for those who are seeing health services for non-COVID related issues. Although there'll be a mask and a symptom assessment, when you come in. Zoom visits will be there for symptomatic students for COVID especially. We will have testing partners here locally and health services will be the referral for that as well. And the director will continue as we do to excuse students from class who are symptomatic or who have come down with the virus just as normal there as well. So really health services will be an important part of the fall. Obviously we don't want COVID people with the virus to come to the health services office. So that's what we're mitigating, but everything else will be in place just like it would normally be in terms of your allergy shots or whatever you need there for from the health services area as well. And finally, just a couple things. Our chapel and campus ministry related programs. Obviously right now, we're not able to have 1,400 plus students in our event center for chapel. We are hoping that number will begin to grow a little bit as we get there. We've got lots of ways we can do chapel. So we can do it online. We can do it in classrooms all over, streamed. I'm hoping that we can have at least a number of people in chapel, that we can rotate groups in chapel. So that's one we're kind of pushing off a little bit until we actually get closer and the number that we have to deal with is there. Right now it's about 175 can be in church and that's kind of our baseline, our start. And so we're going to go forward. We have an exciting chapel lineup coming. We have many of the speakers who were part of our year of evangelism last year and couldn't speak. Lots of well-known national speakers are going to be either here in the fall or on Zoom in the fall. So we are looking forward to that. Our discipleship groups, which is so key for our new freshmen and transfer students right off the bat. Since they are in small groups of 7 or so, they will go off as normal every Wednesday night. And one thing I love about CCU is that every Wednesday night in the fall, 470 or 80 students or so are in discipleship groups every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. I have an alarm on my phone, and every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock during the fall, it reminds me to pray for those groups as they meet. Our missions program will launch again and continue to ramp up for missions next spring and summer. We had 25 trips set to go this year that were sidelined by COVID. We're anxious to get those back in. And finally, in our classrooms, next week, you will be able to hear a lot more about our HyFlex model that we are proposing this fall, which is a student can be in seat, can be online, can stay home and do the semester via live Zoom. They can be in the residence hall and be on live Zoom as well for every class, or they can be in seat. We're trying to proliferate that with everything that we can to be highly flexible for students. And not to steal any more thunder there, as Dr. Janet Black, our academic vice president, is still putting the final touches on that. You will hear about that in the coming weeks. So look for that. And if you're savvy to our schedule, we are switching athletics next week for academics because of the July 17th deadline of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. It would do us no good to have athletics next week, with next Friday being a key decision day about things. We wouldn't be able to tell you anything athletes. So we are going to switch those, and you'll get reminded about that. So we're excited about our HyFlex model in academics. We're going to try to do it all. So be dressed, ready for service. We feel like that's what is on our mind daily here at CCU. We want to be dressed, ready for service. We want to be good stewards of what the Lord has brought us for years here at CCU. And we're asking our students as well to be dressed and ready for service as they come back this fall. This is going to be a unique fall. We're going to need full cooperation from our students. And actually, we know that our students will step up in many ways because that's who our campus is. So I'm not worried about that whatsoever. So thank you for giving me some time there. We've got about 25 minutes here left that I will take some questions. I see some here on our question and answer thing, and I'm going to bring up my email as well, as I've seen a couple of those come forward as well. The first question is, what is your policy for chapels? How can you do that safely? And like I said, we can do it very safely if we're allowed to have people in chapels spread out like the CDC guidelines want us to do, and en masse to their seats kind of things. I think we can have about 500 in there very safely. It seats 1,550. And hopefully we'll be able to do that. If not, we will go with the guideline there, no matter what that number is, and then have everybody else around campus, either in classrooms or in their rooms, watching it via Zoom. So again, we're trying to kick that one down the can down the road a little bit on that, hoping that that number will increase. Sharon Felker, the Dean of Students at CCU, has joined me, and she's going to read the next question, and we'll go from there.
Okay, actually, Jim, I'm going to have you answer the one about fall break. But the next question down is, will there be social distancing in the classroom and dining hall? We'll talk more about the classroom next week. Dr. Black will talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like and how the students will be spaced out and things like that. As for the dining hall, we will have kind of like if you've been in restaurants, we'll have tables spaced out. We have talked about different scenarios about roommates eating together, but we will be trying to make sure that we are allowing for social distancing, that we will have social distancing stickers on the floor and things like
that. Sharon, you're cutting out a little bit. If that happens again, I'll probably have to take the rest of the questions. Why has CCU opted not to cancel fall break and start school early to limit students traveling out of state? Because of our HyFlex model. We want to be in seat all the way through December, but if your family or a student doesn't feel comfortable about coming back after Thanksgiving, they simply will Zoom the end of the semester because we're going to provide that live for every class. So we feel like we've got the best of both worlds there. Those who want to come back after Thanksgiving, we'll have a returning protocol for them. And then they will be in seat for the last 3 weeks usually of the semester. But a student who isn't comfortable with that, or a family who doesn't want to return them to campus, can simply stay at home, Zoom the rest of their classes, and be at home for that. So we didn't feel like we needed to end in Thanksgiving since we had the best of both worlds there. Free testing for COVID.
Will there, right,
Go ahead,
then
you're over that area.
yeah, so it says, will there be available free testing for COVID on campus? We do not have plans for that right now. As Jim talked about, that we are working with several testing areas around the metro area, looking for sites close to us. We are looking at, there have been talks of at-home testing, so we're still exploring all of that, but we won't have it on campus. We're just limited in our staff and the size of our clinic at this point. And Jim, I'll go ahead and answer the next one. Are parents going to be allowed to help their students move in on campus? Absolutely. We know that's important to you, especially for our new students moving on. We are asking our new students to limit the number of family members that you bring to WOW. We would ask you that you limit to 2 family members. Now, that is not a strict and hard fast rule. We understand there's some families that's not possible, but we really are asking you to examine that if you can make that possible. For returning students, I know that some of you bring mom or dad to help you move in, and we'll be glad to have you do that. Again, we're asking you to limit to 2. If you can limit to 1, that would be even better. Also, parents, family members helping move in will have to go through the protocol of getting their temperature taken as well. So just to be aware of all of that, that you'll still be going through that protocol at move-in as well as the student.
Will CCU's policies change as the state restrictions lift? Yes, and especially if we feel like that they're safe and we're able to do them. But we're hoping some of those state restrictions will lift, especially with how many students can be together. We think we can do that in a smart way more than they're allowing us to do it right now. So yes, we're hoping that. Will visitors be limited to people off of campus, and will we be able to invite other people who live on campus to our residence halls? If not, where would be appropriate place to have study groups? Will the library be open and study rooms? Yes, right now, and I'd ask you not to hold this to me too much, but right now, we're going to allow inter-hall visitation. So if you live in Yetter, you can go down and visit your friend in Yetter. We're not going to allow off-campus students to come into our residence halls or any visitors to come into our residence halls. The library will be open and study rooms will be available there. Obviously, when we can, the great room here at Anschutz will be open just like normal. So probably the only abnormal thing in the fall will be walking out into a study lobby in Rockmont and inviting all of your classmates from all over the place to come in and study with you. That will probably not happen. So you might just have to be a little smart on where that's going to happen, but we have plenty of other spaces just like normal there as well.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 WOW questions here. How is WOW going to be structured is the first question. Jim mentioned this a little bit. We are still in plans trying to figure out how this is all going to work so that we can adhere to local and state guidelines. Move in particular will be a sign up opportunity. You will sign up for a specific time. For those of you that are familiar with our weekend of welcome and move in, you kind of know it's always been a big blob of people. We just can't do that. And so you'll have an opportunity to choose the time frame that you'd like. There will be a sign up will be sent out later in July, at the end of July, so that you can get prepared for that. As for the rest of WOW, we are still trying to just figure all that out. We might be doing some rotations of workshops so that we can make sure that we adhere to capacity levels. So we are working on that, and as soon as we can kind of get something good in place, we will make sure that that gets up on the website. What will Moonlight Volleyball look like? In fact, I've talked with my director of campus activities, and we are still trying to figure out how do we do this. Will we have to maybe bring out, instead of having everybody be there at once, we may have to have a few teams on separate courts. Just trying to figure out how that will really work. So we're still working out details, but as Jim said, that we really are trying to make sure that we are not shortchanging our students, trying to adhere to our guidelines, but still continue the great traditional, excuse me, I think my internet is going unstable. There we go. Sorry. we're still going to try to continue those traditional events that our students love. So we're working on it. I will say we could end up having to do something different in August, and then maybe plan for Moonlight Volleyball in another time when we can do it like we want to do it. We're just going to ask for a lot of flexibility and adaptive people this year.
I'm going to ask Dr. Black to come in a second and talk about question, what is your plan for music and theater events, namely the summer musical? And I will go up to, what will a student who is not wearing a mask or refuses to wear a mask be told? They will be told, unfortunately, they will abide by our guidelines, or they will no longer be allowed on campus. So we need to have everyone in line with our guidelines. All it takes is public health to come and do a check. And if some of our students aren't following our guidelines, that will be a problem for everybody. So we will need students to do that. And if we have to, we'll have to have a conversation that if you don't absolutely want to wear a mask, you might not be allowed on campus. How will clubs be impacted? They shouldn't be. They can meet as normal. We'll make sure they're in spaces that have distancing and wearing masks and that kind of thing. So that should happen. Will preview students be coming on campus this fall? Yes, but not for overnights because of our guest policy. They will not be sleeping overnight in the residence halls. They will be for a one-day preview, and we are planning all kinds of different things, limiting number and that kind of thing, to make sure that we stay within the guidelines there. Dr. Black, do you want to talk about summer musical and music events and theater events in the fall?
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Janet Black, and I'm the Academic Vice President of Academic Affairs. The question about the fall musical, we had planned, and auditions were already coordinated for You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And we had planned for that to be performed right at the beginning of the semester, just as students were arriving. Because of some of the restrictions, and because we don't want to be the guinea pigs for the first kinds of theater events that are going to take place across the Denver metro area, a great decision has been made, and I applaud Professor Steve Taylor, Dean Steve Taylor, and his team for making this decision. What they decided to do over at the School of Music was to perform the one-act festival that had been canceled in April. This is a student-written, student-directed, student-produced, and student-acted one-act festival across campus. If you can imagine outdoor venues in various spots across campus with natural amphitheaters, perhaps by the dam or by the pond. And across campus on September 18th, we're going to be running our one-act festival. That's going to push the summer musical back into later in the fall. So if all goes well, we're going to be pushing that summer musical back into October. The date I don't have on my head, I don't remember it, but that's what's going to happen there. As far as other School of Music events, we have great plans for a robust School of Music performance lineup. They may be very different, and I think the tone of this whole meeting is there are some things we don't quite know yet. We are acquiring technology so that some synchronous performances can be put together. Some virtual performances can be put together. Will we have to use that equipment? Will we have to use those ways of performing? We're not sure. Things may loosen up and there may be small venues that we can have performances. But I think that might answer those two questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Black. Hi, Madison. The protocol on campus when a student gets COVID, if they live off campus, they will be asked to stay off campus and not return to campus until their health provider gives them an all clear. We would ask that either they be tested or they go into immediate quarantine, either one. They will be required to tell us that they have symptoms or have tested positive. If they're on campus, the same thing will happen. If they are symptomatic, we will quarantine them quickly until they get their test results. If they test positive, then they'll be quarantined for 2 weeks. And again, we would recommend that if they're at all possible, that they return home. If not, we have quarantine for them here on campus, provide them meals. They can, as long as they feel good, they can Zoom their classes and continue in that direction. So Madison, thanks for that. That's what we're going to be doing there. Athletes will be able to have practices and their competitions, but we're waiting to see what the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference comes out with after a big meeting next Friday, the 17th. We do have protocols in place for practices and for competitions, should they let us move on as normal, which we are anticipating right now. So they will be able to meet as normal. Policy for students who will need to work off campus, specifically at a restaurant, will this be something that roommates will need to agree on? No, but roommates will need to know about. We're not going to restrict our working students. We know that many of you need to work, to be at CCU, but obviously the roommates are gonna want to know about that, to hear about the protocols at work, and that communication line, obviously, of being symptomatic or whatever, is very important. So students can work as normal off campus. I've got a few emails here I'll go through. Did number one there from Courtney. Hi, Courtney. New student retreat I talked about. It will either be in September as normal or sometime next year as we can, but we are planning on it. Talked a little bit about WOW. Expectations for chapel, visitation policy, any adjustment on chapel, the number of chapels a student needs to go to, or a number of service hours they need, will kind of be made as we get into it. We'll see what's happening with chapel. We'll see what's happening continuing in our community in Colorado. And obviously if students are starting to say, I'm not gonna go do any service, for the fall semester and wait till this blows over, whatever, we'll adjust that as we need to, just like we did last spring. Traveling teams right now will be able to travel if athletics is going. I think Dr. Black can speak to whether moot court or debate will be able to travel, or CCU for Life out to the March. Some of that will be as we go, especially the March, I would think. Dr. Black, do you want to say a word about moot court or debate?
So moot court is planning a season right now. They're in a conference, of course, with several different schools and lots of different opportunities for competition. The competitions themselves, some of those groups are doing virtual competitions. Some of those groups are doing in-person competitions and maybe will be canceled. We also know that the CCU has in the past hosted a moot court competition, and we're in the process right now of making those decisions. Debate's the same, that we rely on other schools who are hosting and whether they are going to run their hosted competition virtually, or whether they're going to host it in person, or whether they're going to cancel will be up to those various schools. We ourselves will have teams practicing. In fact, we have teams already on campus in moot court going over things in an outdoor space. So they're already starting. And we have our leaders and our student leaders, but also our faculty leaders who are going to be leading those groups as planned. And we're going to be engaging in as many competitions as we possibly can.
Masks will not be required to walk around campus outdoors. So that was one last question there. Hi, Sylvie. Are we required to be tested for COVID before you come? No, you're not. Obviously, if you feel like you should be, please do. If you feel like you've had a behavior or obviously have symptoms, please do, but you will not be required to be tested before you come to campus, Sylvie. Jacob. About a underclassmen waiver of the meal plan. right now, we are planning meal service to go off just as normal. So there should be no reason for students to be concerned about waiving or refund or getting less cost. We're not anticipating food service to be altered whatsoever. And of course, if it is, then we will make the adjustments at that time. Dory. Will students that are living in apartments close to campus have the same guidelines of no visitors as those on campus? No, we do not have any clout on our off-campus students. We have no governance of what happens in their apartments other than the lifestyle covenant that each of them agree to. So again, we're going to recommend, and I think, Sharon, I'll just remind us that our roommate agreement that we come up with for the residence hall students, let's get out to our commuter students as well. That might be a good guide for them to do. And so as parents, you might want to say, hey, do that guide and let's limit guests or whatever you want to do. But no, right now, they will not be required to limit guests or whatever. So off campus will be doing what they want to in terms of that. We talked about parents for freshmen move-in. Hi, Karis. Commuter students going into apartments, not for fall semester. We'll have a no guest policy in the apartments for fall semester. So we'll ask you to set up in the great room or in the Cougar Den or whatever during intermittent times there. But we are going to just limit our comings and goings in the residence hall for fall semester. We just feel like that's a smarter way to do it. Karina asks, is going to church considered a risky behavior before they come to campus and or after once on campus? No. A side political comment, it's becoming more and more risky behavior to go to church. But no, please go to church. And we will get out the names of our providers for testing. Sharon, please make a note of that. At some point, parent is asking, can we have names of providers for testing? But you're able to go to church when you're on campus, that kind of thing. We are not limiting our students from normal activity once they get to campus in terms of going to church or being involved in youth group or whatever. It's just, again, we'll want those students to really communicate to their other residents, this is what I'm involved in, this is what I'm doing to help monitor that going forward. What is the likelihood that students may have to return back home similar to what happened in March? Elena, I hope it's not likely at all, but that's not our call. If it was up to us, the answer would be no, they're not going to return home. But it's not up to us in terms of if the governor says everything is closed down all of a sudden, we have to do that. Colorado is going in the right direction in terms of cases. It's going in the right direction in terms of hospitalizations and deaths. If you noticed, there's 19 states that some of the eastern states have put on the watch list. You have to quarantine if you come in from them. We're not on there. So we feel like Colorado is going in the right direction, and we're just asking the Lord to be with that so that we don't have to pull up stake again halfway through the year or whatever. Type of face mask required, we're going to give you one when you get here. So just the cloth mask and some, a lot of people around here are using fishing gaiters, and since I have a lot of those, that's what I'm using as well. So we're just going to require something to be covered. We're going to give you a nice Cougar mask when you come that's washable, and you can use that as well. We have a few minutes left here. I think I can crank through some of those.
Hey, Jim,
yeah.
Really quick before you end on the mask, one of the questions Susan is asking, are we required to wear a mask off campus? Susan, I'm not sure if you're from Colorado or not. Right now, I believe city of Denver, you have to wear a mask everywhere. As far as Colorado goes, in Lakewood, Littleton, other areas, it's just mandated based upon the place that you go. So there are some grocery stores that I go in and that says you must have face covering. I go to Target and they recommend it. So that's kind of up to you and where you go and how you're going to live. It says, is there a possibility for masks to not be required later in the fall semester or the spring semester? Please, Lord, yes. But we really are going based upon what our local state guidelines are in the county health. But absolutely, we would love to tell you all, let's go have a mask burning party. Somebody, oh, go ahead. Oh, yeah, yes, amen. Somebody asked, will travel off campus be limited, such as visiting our families or deciding to go out for dinner as a room? You know, we don't want to limit your activities. We ask, if you do, that you take precautions, right? We're going to talk about good hygiene, all of the things that everybody's been talking to you about. But if you do happen to travel out of state, we are going to ask you to fill out a form for us, just so that we can evaluate it. But certainly we want you to see your family. Certainly we want you to spend time with your roommates. Just asking you to be cautious about your behavior.
Yeah, what Sharon said they cut out there was, if you go out of state, we're asking you to fill out a travel form that will tell us where you've been and if it's a hot spot and that kind of thing. And if it was a hot spot, you'll follow the same protocol for hotspot students. You'll come in, we'll ask you to get temperature checked for 2 weeks, that kind of thing. Does it cost extra to stay in a quarantine room? No, Karina, and yes, we will be checking on them to make sure they're alive in there. We have a protocol for that as well. I talked about flying somewhere and coming back in the semester to campus. We're going to ask you to log that with us so that we know about it, and then we'll treat you from there. How do commuter students get evaluated for classes on the 24th? We're going to give you an opportunity on the 23rd to come in and get evaluated, and then on the morning of the 24th, before you go to class, we'll have that available. And so we want to get that as close to the first day of classes that we can. The reason we're doing residence hall students the 19th and when they check in is because they're checking in to the community at that point. They're as close as they can get to entering the community. We want to get you toward Monday classes beginning as much as possible. So it'll be a Sunday or Monday morning type of situation, Kelly. Yes, Austin. Right now, if you live in the Peaks and your girlfriend's in Yetter, you're not going to be able to go see her in Yetter. So that could change. So if you need to pray that the Lord would change our hearts on that, then feel free to enter that with us. But right now, our protocol is no cross. We're just going to limit the comings and goings as much as we can in the fall semester, hoping that we can lift that restriction later in the fall or early spring that way. And then I think my last question from Piper is, yes, athletics, Piper, is set to happen right now. Just 2 weeks ago, the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference had an agreement that athletics was going to happen this fall. But the 17th now has been set up as a day where all the personnel, presidents, athletic directors in the conference are going to get together and talk about protocols. With 16 schools, we've got to make some decisions on when I go to a school, when CCU goes to a school to play, what protocols do we have to do? Do we have to do the protocols that that school has, or is there a set protocols for the RMAC, and if the school supersedes those protocols, we don't have to do them, that kind of thing. So there's a lot to work out when you're talking about 16 teams intermingling together there. Sharon, any more questions? We are right at our time.
Yes, there are. Dr. Black could answer this or maybe push it to next week. Do we know anything about nursing clinical hours or education observation hours? You want to answer that this week, or would you like to wait till next week, Dr. Black?
There are a whole host of academic questions, including education field hours, health sciences lab hours in our CCU campus. I'm going to have some of the deans available in our next session to answer questions in very detailed ways for you. So the experts who are running those programs and overseeing the faculty who are running those programs will be with us next week, and you'll be able to ask them loads of questions. Join us next week at 6 o'clock.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Sharon. You got one more?
Yeah, Hannah just asked about a list of churches that are open closer to when we move back to campus. Absolutely, we'll give you a list of churches. And then, Jim, you may want to touch on this one, is our policy on traveling out of the country during fall break.
During Thanksgiving, there isn't right now. We may have one as we get there closer. You would right now fall into a hotspot kind of protocol as you come back. So right now there's no restrictions on going out of the country. If any restrictions were put into place, it would be a mandatory quarantine once you got back for 2 weeks. But we're trying not to do that. So probably the hotspot protocol would come upon you at that time, and you'd have to have your temperature checked every day for 14 days and that kind of thing. Well, we really appreciate our audience tonight and you coming in and being with us. I just ask for prayer. You guys need to pray with us on all this stuff. We're trying our best to put it all together. We're trying our best to be diligent and good stewards, but we need prayer, we need wisdom, and we need our students to come alongside us and really help enlist the Lord's assistance this fall. But again, we are not sitting around wringing our hands about what to do this fall. We are moving forward in a bold way. We feel like we are ready to serve our students and ready to provide a program that is up to par with our program over all the years we've been in business here, that the Lord's allowed us to be here. So we're just not worried about it. We are diligent about it, but we're not worried about it. And we're asking the Lord every day to walk with us on this journey of providing, again, a quality Christian residential education for your students. You know, one of the things that I'm always reminded of when I think about CCU comes right out of Isaiah 61:3, that talks about creating oaks of righteousness, a planting of God to display his splendor. That's what we're focused on, is creating oaks of righteousness to join with the Lord in creating that, that one day where they are planted, where you students and families, where you have your student planted, will display God's splendor for the rest of their life. And that's what we're focused on. And the COVID thing is in our way a little bit, but it's not anything insurmountable for us. We are moving through it and moving in really good direction. So the Lord be with your family. May the grace and peace of the Lord be with you during this time. We're anxious to see you. So come back and join with us in this odyssey of adventure this fall that we're going through. But we can't wait to open up on August 19th and get the semester kicked off. So thank you. Make sure you look at the schedule for the next 3 of these. Again, we're going to switch athletics. So academics will be next Wednesday, athletics the following Wednesday. And I'll be back with you in 3 weeks to talk about really the agreement that we're going to ask you to sign when you come. That'll be a summation of everything we've talked about tonight. So thanks. Great to see you. Come to God's country when you can.